waiting for Maharaj to join in, and once Maharaj joins, we'll start the lecture. Hare Krishna.
Your meeting ID followed by pound.
Hare Krishna, please keep yourself muted during the lecture, and after 30 to 40 minutes, Maharaj will also take some questions.
Enter your participant ID followed by pound.
Yes, Maharaj is joining in one more minute. So Maharaj has just joined, and we're just working on the settings for live streaming it on ISKCON New York TV channel, the YouTube channel, so that you can also hear it later. Meanwhile, a humble request, please keep your questions ready. At the end of 40 minutes, Maharaj will be ready to answer your questions. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my most humble obeisances. So I am making you host, Maharaj. Please start the lecture. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, you are not audible.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
See if people can hear me now.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Maharaj, I can hear you now. So
Okay.
can you press the record button and see if you are able to record it?
Okay, let me see. Yes, good. So I can record it.
Okay, so you're recording it on your computer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Maharaj. Thank you very much. So you have the sharing settings also if you want to share. So Hare Krishna.
Okay. All right. So how much time do I have here?
40 minutes, 45 minutes, and maybe 10 minutes for questions.
So around 8 o'clock or something like that.
Yes, Maharaj. So the settings
Okay.
at 8 o'clock.
Cool. All right. So Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janabalaba Giri Baradari Jai Gopi Janabalaba Giri Baradari Yasodanandana Braja Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnu Paramahamsa Paramajakacharyato Tadasata Shri Man Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishna Vrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Samveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhunam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Eshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so we were scheduled as speaking about resolutions, New Year's resolutions, how to change for the better. Uh, we all know that we have to change, but at the same time, we resist change, we fear change, we also hate change in some ways. This is the nature of human beings. We can't get away from change. Change is forced on us. It happens all the time. Even if we don't want to change, we have to change. Uh, but sometimes we make an effort to actually change ourselves, which is an important thing to do. We need to, sometimes upgrade ourselves. In fact, it isn't like we need to. It's the cost of doing business as a devotee. There's no way we can get around the idea of having to change for the better. So making a new us is an important thing. So Ajamil was stuck in a rut. He started off good, then he got involved with a prostitute, and then his life was a mess. And at the very last part of his life. He was saved by having named his son Narayan and by chanting his son's name. He was saved by the Vishnu Dutas, and the Yamadutas could not take him away for punishment. He discovered that he had been very fortunate, and he made a commitment to change himself for the better, which he did. He went to Hardwar and he began a life of spiritual focus, which was very different from the life he was living before. So in some ways, this is us, we try to change. Maybe it hasn't been as drastic a change as Ajamil went through, but we try to come up with a sense of wanting to make a difference in our own life, in our own connection to Krishna consciousness. And therefore, every so often, we need to take on a challenge to try to become a better person, a new us. So part of this is, recognizing a need for change. We have to build up the desire to change. And usually something that a lot of people don't think about is we need, in many cases, to at least have a sketch, an outline of what method we might use to create a change. If we don't have a method, sometimes the change never gets off the ground. So we have to also muster up a good degree of will. If we don't have the will to change, then we discover that the change doesn't stick. Oftentimes we also need to make an effort to detail the change. In what sense are we actually changing? What are we changing? How much? And we talked a little bit about this last Saturday when we were doing our Vaishnav hermeneutics class, this idea of sometimes we need to assess the cost of change. That's something I think a lot of people don't think about, is that whatever we are planning to change, there's some reason we haven't already changed. And there's a good reason, there's a good chance rather, that the reason we haven't already changed is because we have not been able to summon the cost of the change. We have not been able to do what it takes. So this is the cost of change, that we have to come to terms with the fact that any worthwhile change is going to require something from us, something that we did not previously commit, something that we had maybe struggled to do before but failed. And in this case, this is what we can call the cost of change. So we often need the help of the Supreme. So to change for a new year or whatever, we have to think about these things, convince ourselves there's a need for a change. We have to really work on changing our desire so that we will decide to make the change. We think of maybe what kind of method we will have to undertake. Try to summon the will, think about the details, the cost of the change, and ask the Supreme Lord to help us. Personally, I don't think I've made a New Year's resolution in a long time. That's a confession that I generally don't make New Year's resolutions. However, that doesn't mean I don't make resolutions. I do, but I just don't make them at New Year's. Usually they get born out of some necessity that happens during the flow of the year. So I don't generally make them at New Year's time. And of course, New Year's time is a good actual time to think about making change. And so maybe we're making a big change, maybe a little change. In any case, big or little, change is something that we are, is worth our time, worth our effort. And even if we fail, we need to make the effort. So if we aren't able to make a big commitment, then maybe a little one, so we're not ready for Mars yet, but we could make a small change somehow or other in our lives. And by making a small change, we can gradually get a sense of connection, a sense of accomplishment that will give us the confidence, the commitment to make bigger changes. So this is what generally happens, is that we find that resolutions never stick, especially New Year's ones. As I said here, generally I don't make New Year's resolutions, but I do make resolutions. And over time in my life, I've discovered that at least 70, 80, maybe higher percentage of the time, when I'm really committed to trying to change something, usually it may take some time. It may even take more than a year, but eventually the determination works out, and Krishna helps me, and I'm able to change myself in some way or another, in a way that I think is necessary. But sometimes it does take a lot of effort. So in the internet, people often talk about New Year's resolutions that don't stick. The reason that they don't stick is because mostly people launch into them without serious thought. They just imagine that, making the resolution is enough in itself, and that will accomplish everything. But usually that doesn't work. And this is why many times for many people, New Year's resolutions don't work. Maybe you've tried before. The usual trend is that people make New Year's resolutions, and shortly, a month or two later, their New Year's resolution is a thing of the past. They either forget about it, or they try it for a while and it's too difficult, and so they come up with some rationale and then give up on their New Year's resolutions. So what can we do about New Year's resolutions, about any kind of resolutions, when we want to make things go for the better in our lives? It's important to make what are sometimes called SMART goals. Some of you may have heard of these already. The first letter is SMART of each of these 5 categories. So a SMART goal is that if you're going to change in some significant way, you have to consider the nature of the change you're going to undertake. So first of all, it should be specific. If what you're hoping to change is too vague, then it's hard to tell whether you've accomplished it or not. And if things are vague enough, you can accomplish things without doing anything. So there has to be something specific to it. It can't be too all over the place. It can't be too watery. It has to involve sometimes specific numbers, specific dates, specific commitments of quantity or quality in some way. And because we're making a specific commitment, in many times that specific commitment has to also be measurable. We have to figure out how we will be able to discover whether we're making progress or not. If there's no way to measure what we're talking about, then everything is too seat of the pants. We don't get a sense of actually connecting with something, actually accomplishing anything. So if we make some specific goal, then we should make it specific. And because it's specific, that means we have to measure something. And if we can measure something, then we can understand whether we're actually making any progress. And attainable means that it's not something that's way beyond us, nor is it something that's so easy that we can grab it very quickly with no real effort. So this sometimes is hard to know how to really, you know, scope in something, whether we're striving for something that's too easy, or whether we've bit off more than we can chew. So, of course, what happens if you bite off more than you can chew, you usually find out that you can't hold to it. And then you can ask yourself, well, maybe there's a lesser version of the goal that you had set for yourself that would have been achievable, but the one that you did set was too high. So you can start with some kind of compromise the next time around. So that's the third aspect of a SMART goal. And relevant means that this goal actually means something to you. Sometimes we can make some commitment to change, but that change is not too important to us or to anyone else, maybe. And therefore, we're trying to do something that maybe we can hold to, but it doesn't really mean anything to us in the long run. It's not really aligned with our overall goals, or possibly it could be even at cross purposes with some of our other goals. And that's something worth taking a look at, because sometimes people fail in their various commitments to make some change. They fail because the commitment that they have is at cross purposes to some other commitment that they have. You can't do two opposite things at the same time. you know. Um, so therefore, you have to see whether the thing that you plan to change is relevant um, to your overall goals. It's not contrasting with them. And finally, the last one is time-based. There should be some kind of time frame within which you will plan to carry this out. If something has no deadline, then essentially it can just drag on forever, and you are always at the beginning of trying to do something, and it's going to happen sometime very, very soon, but it somehow never exactly comes to the stage of happening because you keep deferring to the future the idea of making some kind of amendment to your life schedule in some way or another. So this is why we should set a time base, both uh, not too ambitious, but at the same time, not unrealistic. So if you make a realistic goal, it shouldn't be so realistic that it takes 5 years to accomplish. At the same time, it shouldn't be so ambitious that you expect that you'll accomplish it uh, in a couple of days. Some goals you can accomplish in a couple of days, but for the most part, any reasonable goal, which is going to require any kind of serious personal effort, is going to take more than just simply a day or two. So you can keep these in mind. These are called SMART goals. I didn't think of them. They've been around for a long time, and you can see them on the internet. People have remarked that these are good ways to get a sense of measuring things, of understanding how you are coming to terms with some kind of a goal. But in this case, our goal is to change ourselves, make a New Year's resolution. So the the thing that usually we discover right away after trying to commit to changing ourselves is that things don't go smoothly. Uh, Anything that's a serious change in our life is not going to be easy. It's going to be somewhat difficult to achieve. For it to be difficult to achieve means that we are actually going to have to work at something, and which means also that 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 person that is making the commitment will sometimes succeed and sometimes fail, sometimes have progress, and sometimes backslide. We shouldn't expect that everything will just pan out the way we have imagined in our mind in some way or another. So sometimes things don't come in one go, and sometimes you have to try again. Sometimes you fail, but each time you fail, you get closer to success. That's something that I think a lot of people don't stop to consider. They think that if I failed once, then I'm just going to fail every time, which is not true. Most people who have accomplished any kind of amazing or great achievement in life have failed in the process of trying to achieve that idea or that item that they're working on. They failed, but they continued to work at it. And so this idea that each time you fail, you learn something more, you learn something new, and it helps you to understand what it would take next time to overcome the same difficulty. And in some cases, you need to come up with a new approach. In some cases, you might need outside help. Some cases, you have to just keep on praying. And in some cases, you just have to keep on keeping on. So I found that oftentimes when something is not at all easy for me to accomplish, I have to really make a focus of it in my mind to pray to Krishna to be able to accomplish it, because the hardest thing to change is always ourselves. You know, we can say changing other people is harder, but changing other people is not harder. It's impossible. So it doesn't really even rate. What we can do is change ourselves. That's what we have within our grasp. Changing other people is basically impossible. But changing ourselves we can do, but it's certainly not easy. And it's certainly not always straightforward. And it certainly doesn't always happen in a simple, step-by-step way. There's oftentimes, back and forth, up and down, a failure and success, a mixture of various kinds of issues. And if we're working at it, we will keep on keeping on and continue to pray and think if there might be a new approach, if we need outside help, what we're learning by our various failures. If we keep this in our mind, then we can make eventually the progress that we hope to make. So sometimes we should ask ourselves, well, what's really a worthy goal You know, we can make little small goals, you know, like, you know, that I'm going to eat less, or I'm going to sleep a little bit less, or I will do some, I will uh, become less irritated so quickly, et cetera, et cetera. These are, of course, nice goals, but one of the most important goals is to somehow or other push on Krishna consciousness in a grand way, which is what our whole movement is about, which is what our founder Acharya wanted us to do. So this is really a worthy goal, and we may also do some of these smaller goals, but we can analyze our goal to see if the thing that we're thinking about doing is really something that will make a big difference, not only in our lives, but in the lives of others. Whatever goal we have, whatever thing we set out to try to do, uh, at the end of the day, at the end of either we succeed or fail, there's just another mountain, that's all. Whatever we accomplish, we discover that we have to keep on moving and that the material world doesn't change. It still demands us to become a better person. So at the very top of every mountain, we just see that there's another mountain we have to cross. And therefore, we should think, what kind of goals are really worthy of our time and effort? Because if they are, then they will help not only us, but others as well. So why should we change? Oftentimes, you know, we think, well, you know, I'm okay. I'm doing pretty good, you know, but we cannot stay in bed forever. Cool thought, though. Times force us to change, and we had best take the initiative and win a few points. If we don't voluntarily change, change will force itself upon us, which is never a comfortable or a happy sort of way to go through things. So even if you're struggling and failing at making changes, you're doing better off than just pretending that everything is fine and that you can just go on the same way you are forever. Um, there are indeed things that we don't have to change, but to make progress as a devotee, to make progress in spiritual life, we always have to continue to make some uh, effort to see what's the next quantum level, what's the next mountain that I have to hike my way up. And as we do that, we're making a commitment and we are moving forward. And there's a sense of accomplishment in that. There's a sense of spiritual reward that comes with doing it. Even if we fail and we have to redo or we have to keep working at something that we're failing at, then still we're understanding that no one, no matter who they are, how advanced they are, is a position where they can say, I'm okay now. I don't have to increase my devotional service. I don't have to worry about falling down. I don't have to think very much about trying to increase anything that I'm doing. This is something that I think people who first start out Krishna consciousness imagine that, you know, after a few weeks or maybe give a year or two, we get to that stage where, you know, okay, now we're officially Krishna conscious. And then that's that, you know, we just have to continue to do a little Sankirtan or come to the morning program or whatever it is, and everything will be all right. But it really doesn't work that way. No matter who you are, you have to keep working going forward and uh, trying to figure out where is the next mountain, what is the next challenge that I have to put before myself. So even a little progress is better than no progress. So even if we're not making a lot of progress, we're still making progress if we're trying, even if we're failing. So this is verse 2.40. Neha Vikrama Nasosti Pratyavayo Navidyate Swapamapyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. A little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So Ajamil was protected by just once chanting the holy name of the Lord. And the process of Krishna consciousness is so nice that even if we're only able to make a little progress, that will keep us from backsliding. It's only when we become complacent, it's only when we decide that we don't need to do anything, that's when all the red flags get lifted up, and that's when the danger is before us, when we imagine that we are doing fine. Here we see Bali Maharaj was put in an awkward position. He had committed to give 3 paces of land to Vamandev, and his spiritual guide, Sukracharya, told him that this was all a trick and he should renege on his promise. Bali Maharaj didn't know what was next. He knew that he was up against something that he didn't quite understand, but he felt, well, come hell or high water, I made this promise, I made this commitment, I'm going to go through with it, and we'll see what happens. And of course, what's interesting is in the next few verses, after Bali Maharaj agrees to continue without reneging on his promise to Vamanadev, everything gets taken away from him. The worst possible outcome that could have happened is what actually does happen. However, in the end, he is glorified. So sometimes, and this is one of my important points here, sometimes failure looks like success and vice versa. Sometimes we think we've succeeded when actually we failed, and sometimes we think we failed when we've actually succeeded. Anyone who continues to try, such a person is actually succeeding in spiritual life. So success in spiritual life means that you continue to try. That's what success in spiritual life is. And of course, continuing to try means eventually you will be successful in your particular attempt. So this is the thing to take away. Lord Brahma, he was visibly fearful of the winds of devastation that were shaking the lotus flower. He was surrounded by darkness on all sides. He didn't know what to do. He tried crawling down the stem of the lotus. That was his seating place. And that didn't accomplish anything. So his first attempt was a failure. Then he came out. And when Lord Brahma came out, he heard the word tapa, and he then engaged in performing austerity by meditating. And thereby the Supreme Lord rewarded him by giving him the knowledge it would take to unfold the universe. So Brahma, who is the creator of the universe, he's the most powerful, the most intelligent being in the entire cosmos. And yet he has setbacks. Then what to speak of us? So Brahma not only had a setback when he was trying, first of all, to create the planetary systems, but then later when he decided that it was time to create the living entities to fill the universe, when he tried to do that, he was also experiencing setbacks. So he tried to create the 4 Kumaras. They were supposed to help him in populating the universe, and they refused. And then he turned to his next son, Lord Shiva, who was supposed to help him create the universe. And that son created demoniac beings that were tearing the universe up. So that didn't work. And then he created Narada Muni. Narada Muni didn't help him much in the process of creating beings for the universe either. So you can see how many setbacks Lord Brahma went through. And by understanding that in any endeavor, there's a good chance that there will be some setbacks. And if we understand that and we don't find ourselves disturbed by that, then we can continue. And just like Bali Maharaj and just like Brahma, we can make progress. So that's the substance of my presentation. And I'll take some questions, comments, any kind of um, realizations.
Hare Krishna. At this point of time, you can either raise your hand, I'll unmute you, or type in your questions in the chat box. I can read it out for Maharaj. So we have around 20 minutes. So please feel free to ask your doubts. Hare Krishna. So we have a question from Jasmine Mataji. Yes, Mataji, you can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, teacher, thank you so much for the class. I really appreciate it. And I wish you the same, like many blessings and good wishes. So my question to you is that, so I'm a Krishna follower and a Krishna devotee. And my question to you is, I'm also in the corporate work life environment. Like I work in like a business organization and all of that. And this idea about human rights and women harassment and women to do with women. So what special advice do you have for women? Because I see that there is like the whole movement around us now is about discrimination and women and social equity. So I want some advice for me as I start the new year, because I'm really suffering being in this corporate environment.
Yeah, that's a question that really could take about 30 minutes to answer. I'll see if there's any way I can kind of give some rule of the thumb that might help. First of all, the process of spiritual life is, I think, the important first item for everybody. And dealing with the world, especially in corporate environment, I think every person who does that should think very carefully about how much time that they will actually devote to their occupation. Is their occupation a kind of occupation which would lend itself to some kind of preaching? Or is it not one that wouldn't lend itself to any kind of preaching? If it is, then you can figure out how to add a preaching angle to your occupation. If it's not, then you can figure out how to reassess or reorient your life in such a way that the occupation that you do doesn't consume your entire life, because that's generally the way things work in the modern world. In the corporate world, everybody's afraid of getting laid off, and so many different things. So people generally agree to do any kind of hours, any kind of ridiculous commitments that are placed by various kinds of middle managers or top managers, and this can eat up your entire life. So it's best not to be passive in just accepting whatever comes down the pipeline. However, to think about your vocation in a really three-dimensional way, to think about what options there are within whatever field that you have chosen, to think about how much to give and how much to say, okay, this is it. I'm not going farther than this. If you want me to go farther than this, then I'm going to find another kind of employment. So I think it requires being creative. Otherwise, there's a tendency for occupational necessities to just drain our lifeblood completely. Now, as far as the whole issue of women's issues, I think that certainly in the corporate environment, there's a lot of stir these days. And some of it is, I think, you know, just unavoidable, you know, because in the corporate environment, generally we see that men and women are in close proximity. Our culture wants to pretend that men and women can be thrown together helter-skelter with no difficulties, and they can continue to interact closely for long periods of time and nothing will happen. But of course, everybody knows that's not true. And there's all kinds of issues that take place as a result. And this is why it requires thinking about how to interact in the workplace in such a way that one does not get tangled up in some unfortunate way, and that's easy to happen. And so many employers now are thinking about these things, and of course there's liabilities and there's corporate policies and this and that and the other. So I think all those things are good, and in the long run, you can think about what kind of life you really are trying to live and how much money it takes to live the kind of life that you want to live. And what will take then is recognizing that to the degree that you can live with less money, the degree you can live with, you know, less prestige or less seniority in your particular given field, the more you can live without those things, the freer you will be. And it's a question of making that balance, of recognizing where you can allow yourself to be freer by at the same time downsizing your material necessities. And that brings us back again to what I said at the very beginning. So, you know, without getting into a whole class just upon that subject, those are just a few points that I wanted to put out there.
Thank you, Guruji. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Is there any other question? Please feel free to ask Maharaj. We have something in the chat, Maharaj. Mahagopi Mataji.
Wow, we have a good group here today. This is,
So, Hare Krishna, very inspiring class, Maharaj. Any effort to serve the Lord is acknowledged by Him. We should try our best to serve the Lord whether we succeed or not. Thank you, Maharaj. Accept my heartfelt pranam. This is from Mahagopi Radhika Devi Das.
okay, Mahagopi. Right. So as I was making the one point is that to be successful in Krishna consciousness really means to be successful in continuing to try. Uh, the only time anyone becomes unsuccessful in Krishna consciousness is when they stop trying. And sometimes that can happen. Either we just get despirited, or we experience some really large scale, sudden, unexpected setback. So sometimes these things can really um, sort of emotionally devastate us in some way or another. But if we just continue with Krishna consciousness, another day will come and another problem will eventually subside one way or another. Either the problem will no longer be there or will overcome it in some kind of way. So that's the nature of life, that life is an endless coping with one material issue after another. And as devotees, we generally try to deal with them as best we can, knowing that, in some cases, these material issues will easily be counteracted. In some cases, not easily. It may take a long time. In some cases, some material issues may endure for a long period of time. That's the way that it works. That Krishna is using these various kinds of adversity that we experience in our lives to bring us to a higher level of Krishna consciousness. So we have to just continue trying. And in time, we will see that time and tide wear away everything, that our scenery changes, our environment changes from month to month, from year to year. Uh, the people we're with, the nature of our difficulties, they change, but Krishna consciousness goes on. We have things that we have to rise to, things we have to confront. And some cases it's easy, some cases it's not easy. And some cases we immediately succeed. Other cases we have to keep trying and trying and trying. And eventually there is some resolution, even if that resolution means that we just come to recognize that there's nothing we can do about something. So sometimes that's the resolution. Um, any other?
Maharaj, I have one question.
Yeah.
So the world is like changing quite fast, and there is a high need to adapt to many things, even within the spiritual circle or even the spiritual principles. The details are changing. So, is it very required for everyone to adapt to the changes, or one can uh, be, sticking to the traditional ones without changing oneself to the adapting world?
Ah, that's another one of those questions that really could be a whole class in itself. Some things
Because
um,
yeah,
are
details are very difficult to, because many people have different views. Even in
right,
ISKCON, we see some sannyasis have a view of traditional things. Some, go forward with the changing world. So it's
right, right.
sometimes very confusing what to do.
Yeah.
The,
So I would just say a few words about that. Again, it's one of those things that could be a class in and of itself. But I would say this, that um, there are some things that never change in Krishna consciousness. That is because they are absolute truth. We are studying this right now in our, Vaishnav hermeneutics sessions that we're uh, being conducted, and in this session, we're discussing the fact that there are certain unchangeable situational truths that never change under any circumstances. And those things never change. Now, beyond that, there are applications of those things that can change according to time, place, and circumstance. So then, how much to change according to time, place, and circumstance, and how to do that, that is a different kind of thing, because certainly in the world around us, some things do have to be adjusted according to time, place, and circumstance, while other things can be adjusted minimally. Some things need to be adjusted in some kind of large scale way. So that's why over time, we study, Prabhupada's writings over time. We study the Shastras themselves to find out what things fall in the category of time, place, and circumstance, and what things fall in the category of absolute unchangeable truth. We can never change an absolute unchangeable truth, but even some things that are time, place, and circumstance need not change all the time. In fact, they may be set in place for quite a long time and have been set in place either by our acharyas or by Srila Prabhupada. So as a result, we have to weigh all these different things. And by doing this in a systematic and quite thoughtful way, then we can learn what needs to be changed and how much and what can never be changed. And that kind of is a quick summary. This is the sort of basic of one of the basic themes of the Vaishnav hermeneutics course, which will eventually be appended to the Bhakti Shastri course. It will be the last chapter of the Bhakti Shastri course. After someone finishes Bhakti Shastri, they'll go into Vaishnav hermeneutics. But we're the pilot class right now. So it's the first time it's been given to a large group of people. So there's 30 of us, and we're taking it every Saturday at 10 till 1:30 in the afternoon. So that's kind of the thing that we're dealing with. But eventually it will be a part of Bhakti Shastri.
Maharaj, can we register any details in future
Um,
after
well,
this?
when it becomes available, then anyone
Okay.
can take it, you know. But it's a very worthwhile course, and so it's interesting. There's a lot of devotees taking it.
Thank you, Maharaj,
Okay,
for
so
this wonderful lecture. So we still have 2 more minutes. If any devotee is interested or enthusiastic to ask Maharaj some question, please go ahead. Otherwise, we will have to end the lecture in 1 to 2 minutes from now.
Lajashila is asking me, Vaishnav, what? It's Vaishnav hermeneutics. Which is, I think, for many people, hermeneutics is a word that they've never run across before. It's a word used in scholarly circles. Usually it's applied to the Bible. People try to understand what it is the Bible is actually saying. So hermeneutics is that study of trying to understand something that was written long ago within the context that it was originally written, which is sometimes not as straightforward as it immediately seems. And so therefore, there is a tradition in the Christian tradition. There is a system called Vaishnav hermeneutics. And similarly, in the Vedas, there's a similar thing. It's generally we think of it as being Siddhanta, you know, the harmonious overall conclusion that harmonizes and ties together all Vedic scriptures. They are not separate pieces, each contradicting each other to some extent or another. They are one whole fabric. And that way of understanding how they all tie together and in what sense and what way they all tie together, that's what we call Siddhanta. But for the the use of this modern word hermeneutics, it basically covers that same concept. So that's what the word hermeneutics refers to.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the wonderful
Okay.
lecture. So thank you all the devotees for joining this class. Next week is the disappearance day of the spiritual master of our founder Acharya, and he is none other than Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So we have a lecture on the life and teachings of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. by His Grace Pran Govinda Prabhu joining us from Alachua. Thank you, and please stay tuned for further updates. And this lecture will be available on ISKCON New York TV channel, and also I think it's available on Maharaj YouTube page, Forest Dwellers, after some time. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Simone. So I'm going to sign off and thank you all